And YouTube! Alright, against better judgment, I actually threw the Boss Tone Studio in for the Me-90. I knew I shouldn't have done this. Anyways, okay, here's the deal. I've done an unboxing. We've done some basic banging on chords and notes on the preamps. That sort of thing. We went through, a little bit more today, earlier on another video about, some of my favorite effects plus some extras. And one of the things I had mentioned was the acoustic preamp because it was actually selectable on the ME80. You just right to AC and poof, away you go. Plug in your acoustic guitar and you've got a preamp there. You got a whole lot of nice sound quality and contouring you can do, especially direct into a PA. And of course, then you get to use the effects on board that you want to use with your acoustic that are going to be the usable effects because you don't use distortion or tube screamers on an acoustic. It just sounds like garbage. But anyways, so because I looked at a couple of videos and they're like, oh, if you go over to this area into the boost section, let's turn that on. We have all of these in our boost dial, right? It's like, oh, fantastic. But we also have a selectable area. So now we can actually access stuff that's not generally in that area, right? And it's like, oh, that's really actually kind of cool. It's like, awesome. That gives us more effects. It's like, this is just fantastic, right? Well, then we go into the pedal effects, and of course, we'll turn that on, and it automatically throws the pedal right in the front of everything. They choose how the chains work, by the way. You don't have an option. You cannot manipulate anything up here. So you got all the wah stuff, and but this is all you get. You don't get any extra selectables in here, okay? But that's fine. That's not a big deal. We're getting lots. When we go into the EQ area, okay, we've got phaser, trim pan, boost, delay, chorus, and then we go selectable, and we can also go with straight out EQ only, flanger, vibrato, pitch shift, terminus, rotary. So we get more, right? We're getting more. Even with the delays, we go into the delays and we have all these delays, but then we go selectable and we go plus reverb, okay? And then we got the chorus plus delay and warp and twist and glitch. And these are independent of whatever's in here because you can't select this and have an extra. You have to go selectable and then you go to here. So it's kind of like, I guess what would happen would be, let's say if you were on warm, okay, and then you would hit this for selectable, then you could add that as an extra with that actual effect. So it leaves the one side alone as the normal stuff, and then it throws this on as an extra. I'm not entirely sure how that works without actually going through all that. But my biggest concern and only real concern was in the preamp section. Now on the ME80s and a few others, of course, we have that acoustic preamp, which is great because now you have a board that is more versatile because you can plug in an electric guitar and use it the way you normally would for all your electric guitar stuff. But then if you wanted to plug an acoustic guitar in, and let's say you don't have an acoustic preamp, right? An acoustic amp. Well, you plug an acoustic guitar into a guitar amp, I'll tell you right now, it sounds like absolute garbage, okay? It really does. That's why they make acoustic amps for acoustic guitars. Or you plug into a sound system and your guitar gets put through that way, and you'll have to reshape the sound at the mixing area to custom tailor that to what you want, which is also fine. However, where this becomes into an issue for me at least is, well, if I bring this unit to church and I want to use things like chorus and all that stuff, well, of course, I'm not going to be using any of the built-in preamps because we don't even have one. We have nothing. And even when we go to the selectables to get the extras, had they stuck in an acoustic amp, I would have been kind of happy. But they didn't do that. They threw in all the others but that. And it's like, why did they leave that out? That just doesn't make sense. So now it's kind of where, okay, well, I didn't expect to be using any of these preamps at church anyways. If I'm going to plug an acoustic into this and use something like chorus and delay and, use my reverb, and, I'm going to get those effects, and I just don't use the preamps, which is fine, but then it's the whole reshape again. But then when I get home, this is where I have my biggest issue. Not with my mixer, because it would work the same way, and I would be okay at home or at church for plugging an acoustic guitar into this and not using the preamps. Just leave that section turned off. I'd be fine on that sense. However, when it comes to wanting to use my amp for like an open air recording, or just to use my amp, because I don't want to turn on all my gear and fire up GarageBand or Logic or whatever DAW I'm going to use. I don't want to do that. I'm not in the mood to freaking record. I just want to amplify my signal and have some fun. I now will not be able to do the whole plug this thing into my amplifier, for example, or it'll sound like absolute garbage. Okay, so my only out is I can plug into my mixer, fire up my programs. That is too much of an inconvenience. That drives me nuts. Now, I have used an ME-80 on several different amplifiers over the years that I've had ME-80s off and on, and I've used that acoustic channel in order to override. And I found the best amp actually is any amp that has a power amp in section, like the Katanas, right? The Katanas all now have that, right? Like all of the 50 watter. The 50 watter now has that. The 100 watt was where it had it mainly, but now the 50 watt has the power amp section in there. So what that does is it completely bypasses everything on the top except for one control. Well, two. Your master, which will be your volume, and then of course your wattage output. Okay, and so that makes it perfect to use the ME-80, for example, with the acoustic preamp, because I'm using its preamp. Okay, and then I'm using the effects, because if you don't have a preamp going in, if you don't turn the preamp on, and you go into the power amp section, it sounds like crap, because it's like crap output. You're getting nothing. It's just garbage, right? So, but with that preamp, it's like, oh, that just turned me into an acoustic amplifier right there with my effects, right? Now, of course, the Katana does have an acoustic preamp in it of its own, which is actually fantabulous, and it already has all the effects anyway, so what do we need a pedal board for? Technically, I wouldn't, okay? And many of you wouldn't either. So this is where I have just decided, based upon this one feature, of not having an acoustic preamp in the selectable section or any section at all for preamp. This board is a no-go for me. To me, this would be like throwing $500 in the toilet. And it's going to be the same way for many of you too that have looked into this and go, oh, look, we got this and we got all these extras and it's great. We have all these extras here. We got them here. We got all of them here too. Oh, look at all that stuff we get. That's almost like having a GT1000. Well, all the preamps are from the GT1000, which is great. But that one preamp that you were hoping that this thing would actually have, at least in the selectable area, it doesn't have. So you're screwed. And that, to me, is a break it for me. And I'm sure many others. And before anybody gets and opens up their mouth and crabs about why this is the main thing that breaks it for me, and that I should blah, 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 okay, let me tell you something. I also play keys, and I've had the 650, the 660, and the 670 from Yamaha, the GGX series. Okay, I've also had tons of other keyboards from Yamaha, Roland, and everything over the years too. Now, especially in the Yamahas, they all have an FX system, which many keyboards do have of other brands. Now, one of those areas are things like thunder and streams and waters and ocean sounds. And you were able, on all of those keyboards, to hit any key you want from one side of the board to the next, regardless how many keys you had. You got every frequency level of that sound possible, okay, that was within the limits of the keyboard, right? In the 670, they took it out. Okay, now you won't get every key. You got to figure out what keys actually are going to activate. They pre-selected only specific keys for a sound, but they added other sounds in there too. And it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm hitting this key and I'm getting a dog barking or a woman screaming, and it's like, but you can't select the sound either, right? This is a problem. And that was a big negative to me. Now, a couple of people, anyways, they got on that video and they're like, well, these things are more for, advanced players and blah, 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 blah. Or they come up with some other whiny bag excuse saying, well, you're just being a crybaby, because, you expect, and real keyboard players, they don't need those anyways, and they're never going to use them. Bull. Okay? In performance and live performance, depending on the kind of music you're playing, you may actually need that effect. You may need that rain effect or ocean effect. And though it's built in still, there's not very many levels of it. You have no idea what key is going to do what to you. This is bad, right? And I used to be able to stack the sounds too, right? From different sounds within the FX, I could stack them and have, multiples going at the same time because of a song I was going to do. Can't do that on the 670 anymore. So even Yamaha, like, they could have fixed that with a firmware update, This little puppy hasn't even been on the market for 6 months yet, or a full year, in fact. And already they've got a firmware update that I had to do before I could even friggin' use this program. That's pretty sad, that it needed a firmware update that quick. But you know what? They got to get it out to market. Got to make stuff work, right? And I'm sure it won't be the last update we see, which is fine. And I don't mind the fact about that. But that preamp that is now gonzoed, that wrecks it completely for me having a versatile machine again. So what do? Do I go back to the Me-80? No. Because the Me-80 is going to be the same problem. I cannot choose my pedal orders, which is another reason why it kind of turned me off a little bit. But I didn't mind for certain things. It really wasn't that bad, and it's really not that bad if you can't change your order. But if you're a professional playing on stage, you need to be able to pick your order. And that's the one thing that made me kind of fall in love with the GT1, which is far cheaper. And though it's still Cosm effects, it's fine. It doesn't bother me. But it actually gave me a lot more advantages than even this does. And I don't remember if it had an acoustic preamp in it or not. I think it did. I'm going to have to check again. But I do need an effects system that's going to work for me fully. And I know the Me-80 won't fully work for me, even though it has the acoustic preamp. This is just not going to work for me at all, period. So that's going to be, this is a big downer in this area. I mean, anything for electric guitar, that's fine. But, for, being able to use an acoustic in all the ways that I need to be able to hook up, it's not going to work. So that's definitely a big break it for me on this one. So to me, this is a loss at $500. Now, I'm grateful I rented this. I did not buy it right away. Whew, thank goodness. Okay. But I got to experience it. That was a big thing, and I got to try it out and see what it's like, let you guys know what I think about it, that sort of deal. And it's overall, it is a really good board, and it does offer an awful lot of effects that to buy these effects separately, you could just buy like 4 Boss effects and you've already spent more than what you would on this board. Okay, I mean, that is a serious thing, literally. You can literally buy like 4 Boss effects, maybe 5, tops, and you've just blown out the budget, or you buy this board. Okay, it depends on what's going to work for you. But for my requirements, okay, and anybody else that's like me, this is a break it. This is where we got to say no way, not going to happen. So back to looking for more pedal board processors, I guess. I already know that all the Line 6 ones are out of the question and a few others, and I wouldn't give you a nickel for any of the Zoom effects. They're all garbage and junk, and they also don't have what I need either. So I am kind of, in that area where I have to either stick it out with Boss in either Hopefully, if I remember, the GT1 may have had that acoustic thing, but I know I can change my pedal order any way I want. Got tons of effects. And it was working really good. I just don't remember why I got rid of it. It wasn't because I didn't like it. It was probably because life happened, which is quite probable. It's happened a few times in the last year and a half. So I'm slowly recovering again. But I think I might just try out a GT1 again. The only other option I have that is an end-all to be-all would probably be the GT1000. And I am not prepared to spend that kind of money, again, just for, a few simplistic things. So I need to figure out my other solution that's going to work for everything I need for a pedal board usage, aside from using my computer. Because my computer can just do it all, but I'm not bringing a computer system to church and hooking into the sound system and firing up Logic and setting all that garbage up. Not a chance. Although probably a lot more cheaper for me to do, like $0, because I already have all the equipment for that. And I could just plug right into the DI line. It's not a big deal. But I just don't want to go through all that hassle because I have enough to deal with my iPad and for all my lyrics and all that other jazz. So, yeah, we're not going to do the computer thing. Anyway, that's it. That's all. For most people, majority of you, this is going to be fantastic. For that purpose, I would give this thing a 4.5 out of 5. Okay, for my purpose, yeah, I'm kind of like not even going to bother because it's just not useful for me. Not for what I need. So anyways, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.